some of the biggest news over the last 24 hours is Trump being arrested. Well, him forecasting that he was going to be arrested, and it's been on the news cycles all day, and I've been watching it all day. Obviously, I'm here in the Dominican Republic, so I'm on a different time cycle than Dr. Rod. He's in Australia. He's only sort of just gotten up for the day, and so I've been watching this all day, expecting to come into this podcast to talk about Trump being arrested and what that means and all this stuff, and it kind of became a non-event, but it was probably the biggest event of the day. New York was put on notice, and the police were told to wear all the best uniform, their dress uniforms, and there were barricades put out everywhere. And there was even a bomb threat at the courthouse. And there's all this like, will they, won't they, will they, won't they? Hasn't at yet. It looks likely, but Dr. Rod, what's going on with this whole arresting a president or a former president?
I would say from where I'm sitting, a bit of a circus, quite frankly. Look, it was never going to happen like it might in the movies. That was never, ever on the cards. Look, yeah, he might be indicted. He might have to wander on down and be arrested and be fingerprinted and so on, and ask for bail, and then he'll be out again. Look, it's very, very difficult not to draw the conclusion that this is a political stunt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Look, I mean, what's it all about? You know, there was a number of years just before his, pretty sure it was the 2020 election, sorry, the 2016 election, I'm pretty sure, a porn star, Stormy Daniels, I think her name is. Obviously, you know, I'm not all that versed in the porn industry. She was paid off by his lawyer. His lawyer was then put in jail because of that, and then now 6 years later, I think it works out to be 7 years in August this year. So it's almost outside of the limit of statute of limitations. And so, yeah, it does seem to be a little political, especially when you're looking at New York, which is Manhattan. New York City is who's trying to arrest him. They've just pretty much decriminalized everything, and they're not arresting anyone for anything, and they're releasing criminals, and now they're arresting him for that. It's obviously quite politically charged. But our theme for today, and what I want to do a bit of a trend through is, you know, the truth is actually revealed in our actions, right? Like there's always, we can talk the talk, but it's really, we are judged by our actions. And actually, on that point, I mentioned earlier about let's not be judgmental about these things. We don't know every situation about this. We don't know the behind the scenes. We don't know. We're only seeing what we see in the media, and we all know they are biased. Both left and right are biased. So I'm not ignorant to the fact that they're all biased, and they're all going to put their slant on it and show favorable information to their side. But there was a statement that I've heard, and it's so powerful. We tend to judge people on their actions and yet judge ourselves on our intentions. We judge others on their actions and ourselves on our intentions. And so while we're looking at these things today, it's quite easy for us to say what we would intend to do in these situations and then judge these people for their actions. But I suppose that's our first leadership lesson for today is, how about we make sure that we don't judge people on their actions while only holding ourselves to our intentions. Let's believe the best in people and believe that they have the best intentions with these things. But let's say with all this stuff, we're talking about that our actions actually just reveal our truth. We may, it's the old adage of you can't just talk the talk, you got to walk the walk. And this is shown with a number of our stories today, but especially with this thing with Trump, from President Trump being possibly being indicted for this thing, it kind of goes in two ways. Number one is Donald Trump, all of these little things that come out, they kind of do reveal, you know what, the actions reveal who he really is. Now, I'm not denying he's done some great things in his presidency, not denying he's done some terrible things in business and all that sort of stuff, but we are judged by our actions. We may try to sweep things under the rug. We may try to pay off a porn star, but at the end, the truth is revealed by our actions. Dr. Rod, how would you advise, let's say, Donald Trump in this moment, former President Donald Trump, how would you advise him in the fact that know that your decisions, your actions will reveal the truth about you? How would you advise him in this situation?
Oh, shut up. Great Australian advice. But look, I probably would have given him that advice on many, many, many occasions. Often the way of the wise is to keep their mouths shut.
Mm-hmm.
Because, look, this is clearly politically motivated. You're talking about intentions and actions. A number of people, including the prosecutor in this case, have made it very clear that they intend to find something to arrest him on.
Yep.
And one of the ironies here is that there hasn't really been much outburst on moral grounds that, hang on a minute, this is not a moral thing to do. And if he is indicted, it's not going to be on the basis of any moral issue, because they can't. It's going to be based on a technicality in terms of how the money that was paid was actually accounted for in the books of his company or in the books of his campaign. That's what it's about. So really, we're not hearing much in the media at all about the rights and the wrongs of what he did. And incidentally, subsequently, he sued that person and won his case. My understanding is he sued for defamation and he won his case. Now, not much is being said about that in the media either. So, I mean, I use the term circus, but it is actually a little bit more serious than that. I did call it a circus a little earlier. I think, I would say to him, just sit tight, be quiet, because I think we're witnessing the undoing of hundreds of years of democracy in the United States. This has become a deliberate, long-term action by those who oppose him politically to damage him. I've got no doubt they want to put him in jail. They want to get him off the scene. They want to get him out of the public. This is a very, very serious thing to happen in any country that claims to be democratic, and not politically democratic, but established as a democratic republic. And of course, it was and has been a very successful republic now for hundreds of years. So we Australians find the American system confusing, hard to understand, open to a lot of corruption. To us, the knowledge that the district, that the prosecutor is funded by a far left business person who's also got the knives out for Donald Trump. I mean, we find that really difficult to understand in Australia because our justice system doesn't work that way. Because of the way in which many of the key positions in the justice system in the United States, they're political because they're all elected. Now, I don't think the founding fathers expected that we'd end up in a situation like this. The idea behind election really was that the people have the power, and their elected representatives, of course, are supposed to represent the people. Now it seems that they use their elected positions to prosecute very narrow political interests. In this case, the political interest is to do whatever they need to do to get rid of Donald Trump.
So let's jump on that for a moment, because obviously we spoke about, your truth will be revealed in your actions of like paying off porn stars and everything like that. Like that kind of reveals a character, and it's kind of consistent. We're well aware of, let's say we're well aware of Trump's flaws, right? I think we're all aware of that. Let's look at the other side of this, of like the truth will be revealed in your actions. This circus, as you say, witch hunt, everything like that. The fact that they're saying we're just going to keep pushing until we find something, like it's been quite obviously admitted. Like they openly admitted that yeah, we're just going to keep pushing until we find something. That's kind of revealing the truth in their actions, isn't it? Like we're now kind of, as you say, the democracy is kind of falling apart, and especially, let's say, the far left, it's in all of these actions, it seems like they're getting further and further from the truth, but the truth of what they're trying to do is kind of being revealed in these random crazy actions. What do you think that truth is that's being revealed in this action?
Oh, look, again, that you ask such difficult questions, really. I mean, I think they've been fairly open about what their intentions are. They really want to get Donald Trump out of the limelight. They want to get him out of the election. They just want to get rid of him.
Yep.
And because he upset them a lot when he was in office.
Yep.
He hasn't
he
come
upset
up
the
through
system.
You bet he did, because he didn't come up. He didn't even come up through the right channels.
Yep.
Right. He's not a career politician. He's someone who came in from the outside. He's someone who said what he thought. However, I would say this, in terms of the popular vote, he didn't get in by all that big a margin in 2016. So you can't say that he had, as it were, the overwhelming support of the population. But he did some things which certainly would have upset the establishment.
Yep.
He had a lot of successes. There's a fairly long list of probably 18 to 20 quite significant achievements of, if not Donald Trump directly, his administration.
Yep.
Not the least of which is the first president not to start a war or to get heavily involved in a war, and was able to broker some amazing peace agreements in the Middle East. And during his time as president, there were the highest rates of employment of blacks and Hispanics in American history, high rates of economic growth. Look, America was in pretty good condition. Now, it wasn't all because of him, lots of other factors as well.
Yeah.
But the achievements, and particularly the fact that, like him or loathe him, he actually did in office what he said he was going to do.
Yeah.
Now, that is a very, very rare thing for anybody in political office. And look, I was asked by some students just prior to the election in 2016, who would you vote for? At that point, it was down to two candidates, one from the Democrats, one from the Republicans. And I said, well, I would vote for Donald Trump if I had the right to vote in that election. Now, my students at a Christian university mind, they were aghast. I said, well, line up what he's promised to do with what the other has promised to do with biblical truth. And that's the basis upon which you vote. And that's the basis upon which had I been eligible to vote, I would have voted for Donald Trump. But I certainly wouldn't have treated him in the way that many evangelicals did. In other words, I wouldn't have put him on a pedestal. Yeah. I don't think any politician or business leader, for that matter, should be on a pedestal, nor should pastors.
No one should be on a pedestal.
We shouldn't be creating celebrities. I just don't think that's the biblical way. The only celebrity is Jesus, no other.
Well, I mean, that was the issue when God was appointing judges and rulers over Israelites. They're like, give us a king, and he's like, I don't want to give you a king because you'll celebrate that king, and that'll be your downfall. And we saw it time and time again.
Power and will start wars and tax you and throw your sons into conflicts and all sorts of things. Look, the American political system is broken, probably not because of its structure or of the heart, where so many positions are elected. I think that goes right to the very heart of the Christian underpinnings of the Republic. But there's no doubt that the almost removal of civility in public life in the United States has done enormous damage to the Republic. It really has. I think it's the people rather than the systems that are the problem.
Yeah, because people are the thing that get corrupt, not systems.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah,
and I don't know. I mean, I'm not an expert, and I don't live in America, but I don't know that if America called me in as consultant, I don't know whether I'd necessarily make a lot of changes to the systems. What we need is a really radical shift in culture.
Yeah,
a culture that says the nation's interests matter, not my own, not my political parties. What we need is people who've got a vision, a 25 or 30-year vision.
Which is kind of like which you mentioned a few weeks ago when we're talking about Governor Ron DeSantis, and he kind of came up when in this topic about Donald Trump, because Trump is in Florida and in Mar-a-Lago, and they asked Governor DeSantis what would happen if he was extradited. Not that you can be for this sort of thing, but his response was just so. He's so poised, so polished. He's so confident, and just even though as you mentioned before we went live, he had an opportunity to have a dig at Trump, and he didn't. I mean, he had a bit of it. There was a bit of an off the cuff.
There was a little jab.
But there wasn't like there's nothing. Yeah, like you say someone who can come through and talk about the country and not me. That's kind of his message, and he does really carry that. But going back to one of those things that you mentioned before, of like kind of like what's the truth that's being revealed from these actions, and we're going to talk about Steven Crowder a little bit later on, and if you don't know who he is, you got to get to know him. We'll talk about him later. If you do know who he is, stick around. We've got some good things to say. But in one of his shows, was it today or yesterday, he brought up the stats of like during a Republican president and especially Trump, how the blacks and Hispanics had increased by whatever percent. I can't remember the exact percentage. He has all the stats. The income had increased by quite a drastic amount, and yet under the Obama administration, it actually went down into the negative and stuff like that. And he was actually talking about and revealed this amazing like information. There's like, it's so true. What are they actually trying to do? Trump and people like him and people that are Republicans and stuff are trying to build a wealthy, self-sustaining nation. They're trying to build that people can support themselves. People can be contributing members of society, things like that, right? They're trying to help people become wealthy, independently wealthy. Whereas the left, they are trying to force that people become dependent on government. And what's that? That's the Marxist view, right? That's that Marxist culture that they are trying to embed into culture, that with all the government handouts and bringing in like the universal what's that, the universal income, like whatever that, like universal, whatever, like everyone gets a minimum, amount and all this sort of stuff. It's just Marxist. It's communism. It's that they are just trying to force that. And that's kind of our biggest issue of what happened in Australia, with all the handouts and everything like that. It did nothing to help people support themselves. It just got people used to reliance on handouts. And And that's kind of, I suppose, if we're to look at what's the truth that's being revealed in this, it's they are just trying anything to stop someone like Trump getting back in office and allowing people to succeed for themselves, and trying to force their Marxist view and force us as civilians of whatever country we're in. That's their view. That's their aim, is they want to force us to be reliant on government. Just look to government. What a government want. And they're even talking about this is now off like kind of off topic, but let's go there. They're talking about the 15-minute communities. Have you seen the thing about those 15-minute communities?
I have read a little bit about that. Yes. Yeah.
That this is their aim. They're trying to force us to be these 15-minute communities. Actually, it was Tim Pool. That's on Timcast IRL. That's where I heard this, where he was talking about there was a guy who explained it perfectly. He walked into a chicken farm and he said, "This is a perfect example of a 15-minute community. Everyone thinks that it's amazing because we live within 15 minutes of everything. We're all self-sustaining. We're all here. No one earns any money because we don't need anything because everything's provided for us." But he walks into this chicken shed and he goes, "This is a 15-minute community, right? All these chickens live all close. They have everything provided for. They have their sleep, they have the shelter, they have their food, they have everything provided for, and they get paid nothing. But everything that they produce, we take. They produce eggs and we take it. They produce eggs, we take it." And so that's the issue with these things, is we are driving with all these little things that they're trying to do. Stop Trump from helping businesses succeed, force us to be reliant on government. You create this idea of these 15-minute communities, everything like that. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to force us to become reliant on government, which is Marxist. And we as Christians, as leaders, need to stand up against that. We need to make sure that we are fighting against that, because that's the truth that's being revealed in these actions. Hey, you just watched an excerpt from the On the Cube Leadership Podcast. If you like that, hit the like button and put a comment below. Hey, if you want to watch more videos like this, check out our channel, and while you're there, make sure you subscribe.